Today our society faces many problems and issues. Therefore, it is not surprising the presence of these issues in our schools. And although it would be ideal to find solutions to these problems, we know that it is almost impossible, for they are very complex. Nevertheless, we shouldn't ignore these issues, for ignoring them only increases their prevalence. Some of these issues that are present in our schools are poverty, violence, high school dropouts, lack of parental involvement in schools, sexual identity, sexual harassment, technology, and educating for global citizenship. Poverty is not just a characteristic of third world countries. It is also present in our country, and it not only affects access to material resources, but also to those that deal with essential human needs. Unfortunately, the most affected are our children, whose malnutrition produces a negative effect on their cognitive development, which is essential for their educational development. It also affects our schools, where many not only lack a safe infrastructure, but also lack access to basic materials such as books and other school supplies. We can't expect our students to be successful if they and their schools are lacking the essentials. Unfortunately, violence is another issue that our schools are facing today. And it is not just affecting the troublemakers, it is affecting the whole school system, for a single act of violence can have a profound effect on our students, affecting them not only physically, but also cognitively and psychosocially. Schools need to provide a safe environment in which students can learn to their full potential. Not only that, but we also need to protect our children to and from school, for this is the time where most of the violence occurs. More importantly, we as teachers, parents, and community members should provide our youth with resources that influences them positively. Not only is violence and poverty affecting our schools and children, but also those same factors are sometimes the main cause of the increase in high school dropouts, which is not surprisingly affects African Americans and Latinos, the very same people who are affected by poverty and in turn by the violence which is sometimes caused by poverty. Unfortunately, dropping out would only increase their likelihood of staying in poverty and creating a cycle, for it is now becoming difficult to find a high-paying job with a high school diploma, even more without one. It is well documented that when a parent is heavily involved in their children's education, the more likelihood that the student will succeed in school. It is for this reason that schools should do what they can to prevent many of the problems that accompany the lack of parental involvement. Every student needs some sort of emotional and educational support at home, for it not only increases their self-esteem, but also their appreciation for a good education. But in order for these to happen, the schools must provide a welcoming environment in which every parent feels welcome. Another issue that is widely been debated in many aspects is sexual identity, more specifically homosexuality, but it is a very sensitive issue, especially for religious institutions. Nevertheless, we cannot allow students to be discriminated or harassed based solely on their sexual identity. Schools need to provide a nurturing environment in which every student learns to appreciate and respect not just differences in race, language, and religion, but also in sexual identity. More importantly, gay and lesbian students need emotional support, where adolescence itself is a sensitive developmental stage, even more so if we add the social stigma against gays and lesbians. Not only is the acceptance of diverse sexual identities important, but also the realization that sexual harassment is prevalent in our schools, especially among adolescents who are just discovering their identity and are undergoing puberty. The schools and teachers need to realize that today's media has bombarded our children with sexual images, which prevents them from realizing what is acceptable and what it's not. Therefore, teachers, as educators, should take the opportunity to teach students what is acceptable, especially when it comes to invading the privacy and space of others. Sexual harassment needs to be taken seriously, especially from its early beginnings, for it can lead to more serious situations. No child's education should be negatively affected because of sexual harassment. Although technology is now widely available, and many of us depend heavily on it, many schools are not taking advantage of it. Most of the time it's not because they don't want to, but rather because many schools lack the funding to provide the necessary training and technology in the classrooms. Also, there seems to be a lack of research on how exactly to integrate technology in the classrooms. Most students of today know more about technology than their parents. Therefore, technology has the potential to engage them. More important is making sure that all households have access not only to a computer, but also to the internet. For the most disadvantaged communities are the most affected by the lack of technology. Similarly, technology has further globalized our society, as well as immigration and the common concern for our environments. It is for these reasons for which schools should educate for a global citizenship, where we as human beings, regardless of our obvious differences, have also many concerns and issues in common. More importantly, this becomes in our country where diversity is the main characteristic that distinguishes us from other countries of the world. We must teach students to embrace not only our similarities but also our differences. Not only does it help students to learn about diversity, but also fosters academic achievement and has the potential in creating a more socially conscious citizen who could potentially solve many of our social issues that our society is now facing.